This is a strategic disaster. Harry, you can't preach about how you're giving your children space out of the public eye while your wife has just posted another picture of them, photoshopped to sell a candle named after them, while also revealing a full-on face shot of the child as a baby. So you can't preach when you're doing the exact thing you claim to be so bad.
Here's the deal. I am not mad at any photoshopping because, as we've seen already, Meghan is completely inauthentic. Her only authenticity is in her inauthenticity, if you will.
These pictures, which all appear to be artificially altered in some ways. This is just what we expect from you. This is just what...
Thomas Markle is 80 years old, sitting alone in a house in Mexico, and the only way he finds out about his own grandson's birthday is through an Instagram post. Like everybody else, a stranger scrolling through their phone gets the same access to Archie's life that his grandfather does. That's not a family situation. That's a PR schedule. 7 years. Archie just turned 7. And in all that time, not one phone call that got a response. Not one letter answered. Not one invitation to California. Not one visit arranged. Nothing. Just a carefully managed image dropped on social media, while the grandfather, who has been asking questions for years, watches from a distance, through a screen, like the rest of the public. Thomas has been speaking out about this for years. And what did he get for it? He was called bitter, unreliable, self-serving. The press did the work of silencing him so nobody else had to. But then Archie's 7th birthday arrived, and everything Thomas Markle ever said about how his daughter operates showed up in plain sight, all at once. 2 photos went up. The first? A newborn Archie sleeping on Harry's chest.
Let's start with Harry's hair, shall we? First of all, we all know that the reason why the royals can't go on Rogaine and other stuff is, they're worried about children and all that stuff, but they're past childbearing years. I don't understand. There's no shame in that game to go to Turkey and do what, everyone else has done and get some hair put in. If that's the look you're going for, just take a nice trip to Istanbul, come back with a full head of hair, and people will keep it moving. Instead, your wife wants to fluff it up a bit. It's kind of ridiculous. Meghan is completely inauthentic.
She is very clever. Her problem is she's not clever enough. She lacks self-awareness. She doesn't realize she's too clever. That is a terrible dilemma to be in, that not recognizing your own limitations.
An intimate, private moment from the first hours of that child's life, posted to millions of followers on a commercial platform. The second showed both kids from behind, wading in shallow water, faces hidden, a dramatic mountain view in the background. The caption read, "Happy birthday to our sweet boy." Warm, personal, seemingly real. Except within hours, people started noticing things that didn't add up. Harry's hair. In that newborn photo, Harry's hairline looked noticeably fuller than it has been in years, or than it was in any documented photo from around the actual time Archie was born. Side-by-side comparisons started circulating fast. Archive images were pulled, and a large, growing number of people landed on the same conclusion: the image had been digitally touched up.
Harry and Meghan have nothing to do with fair play. In the very beginning, when they first arrived, they had kind of asked fair play, like, hey, we might be interested with Archwell and whatnot. And guess what happened? They never followed up. And in fact, people at Fair Play kind of realized what they wanted was money to go through Archwell to go to Fair Play. They gave absolutely no support, but at the same time, they like to take all the credit. Meghan is all about supporting Meghan. She claims that she has supported women for years, and now it's finally time to stand up for herself. Show me the women that you've supported, girlfriend.
To give Harry a hairline he simply didn't have. On top of that, commentators flagged Lilibet's arm looking off in one shot, and the children's colouring not matching photos the family had previously released themselves. Now, remember what happened when Princess Catherine posted a Mother's Day photo that had been lightly edited? The media lost it. Days of wall-to-wall coverage, demands for the original unedited file, wild theories about what was being hidden and why, and Catherine, who was privately dealing with a serious illness she hadn't yet shared publicly, was put through an extended and genuinely cruel media storm all over one adjusted family photo. The response to the Archie birthday photos? Glowing profiles of Meghan as a devoted, loving mother.
Brooklyn Beckham was supposedly seeking counsel from these two, right?
Yeah.
And Harry and Meghan were like, we understand what it's like to be traumatized by your family. But Brooklyn had come out and said, I was monetized from day one. And, you know, he was really upset that his parents basically owned his name, all this stuff. Well, guess what? Meghan and Harry own their kids' names. They own the domain names, they own the emails, they own everything else.
Kris Jenner hadn't liked any Meghan Markle social media pictures since last year. And then we get this less than a week later. This is no coincidence, and another example of how Meghan obsesses over her media coverage and claps back as much as possible.
Not one major outlet asked to see the originals. Nobody questioned why Harry appeared to have significantly more hair in that photo than he had in real life at the time it was supposedly taken. The double standard wasn't subtle. It wasn't even close. It was so complete, so consistent, so breathtaking, it basically wrote its own story. Thomas Markle has never said anything sinister about these children. What he has said clearly, on the record, across multiple interviews, is that his daughter is highly controlling, that the image she puts out is carefully constructed, and that there is regularly a gap between the version of reality she presents and reality itself. He was talking about their relationship. He was talking about how she handles the press. But when a photo of his son-in-law's hair gets digitally enhanced for a birthday post, while the same family positions itself as the real, transparent, authentic alternative to palace formality, that gap doesn't need anyone to explain it. It just shows itself. Now, set the photos aside for a second.
Just acknowledge the reality of the fact that there's some really evil, wicked people at the heart of this who want to farm our children's mindset and market it for themselves. There is no free will on social media as it stands. And people turn around to me, these parents turn around and say, people, surely we can learn from the mistakes of the past. And I said, mistakes to who? Because to the social media companies, it wasn't mistakes.
Because what happened on the commercial side around Archie's birthday was, if anything, even more revealing. Meghan's lifestyle brand launched a Mother's Day collection in the days leading up to Archie's birthday. At the center of that collection, 2 candles. Signature candle 506, named for the 5th month, 6th day Archie's birthday. Signature candle 604, named for the 6th month, 4th day Lilibet's birthday. Both priced at $64 each. And an email went out to the brand's entire subscriber list, pushing people to buy these candles at the exact same moment the birthday post was going live to millions of followers. One of the very first accounts to engage with that birthday post was the brand's own commercial page. Read that again slowly. A child's birthday, used as a content event, coordinated with a product launch, named after that child's birth date, pushed through the brand's marketing machine on the same day. The journalist Tom Sykes put it plainly, the birthday post was not a birthday post. It was content designed to drive traffic and commerce. And here's where it gets really uncomfortable, because wasn't protecting their children from exactly this kind of thing the entire reason Harry and Meghan gave the world for stepping back from royal duties?
Harry and mostly Meghan, it seems, are actually really obsessed with the titles. Meghan and Harry care a lot about those titles. And they say that they don't, but they clearly do.
There's a huge hypocrisy here given Catherine, Catherine suffering from cancer was hauled over the coals, especially in the American mainstream media. It was like she was the devil incarnate. Yet Meghan sort of posts these pictures which all appear to be artificially altered in some ways. Can we just start with Harry's hair? Even in 2018, he didn't have hair like that. So definitely the hair has been made fuller, but it's the actual pictures of the children which are always so weird.
They said they needed space to raise their family away from cameras, away from the pressure of being treated as public property. Harry spoke with real feeling about what it did to him growing up as a commodity. He did not want that for his children. Harry has since given speeches and attended summits specifically about the dangers social media poses to children. He's spoken to organizations. He has said with zero ambiguity that parents should be cautious about posting photos of their children online, that with artificial intelligence and unregulated platforms, nobody can control where an image ends up or how it gets used. He built a whole public identity around being an advocate, a protector, a man who learned hard lessons and wanted to spare others from them. The candle email went out anyway. And Thomas Markle?
Harry and Meghan should be shaking in their boots right now if they are not already. And they could have had the best of all worlds if they had played their cards right. But this was a route Harry and Meghan decided to go down where they trashed their family, and this is the result.
When multiple lawyers reached out offering to represent him for free to help him pursue grandparental access rights to Archie and Lilibet through the courts, he turned every single one of them down. Thomas Markle's reason for turning those lawyers away was simple and stated plainly. Using the courts would mean using the children as instruments in a conflict. It would mean making them pawns, and in Thomas Markle's world, that's just wrong, full stop. He said he would wait until they were ready, and he has kept that promise for 7 years. His grandson just turned 7. A candle bearing that boy's birth date sold for $64, and Harry gave a press briefing about what a thoughtful, evolved parent he is. But even the candles weren't the most calculated move around Archie's birthday. For that, you have to look at what Harry chose to feed to the press on the very day his son turned 7. A piece appeared in a major American celebrity publication, the same outlet whose executives have spoken openly and on the record about receiving material directly from the Sussex team, and which has, by its own account, received communications from Harry himself. The story was framed as a warm, admiring portrait of Harry as a father. What it actually was, once you strip away the flattering language, was a direct hit on King Charles. A source described Harry as being intentional about giving his children space to grow into their own identities and linked that priority directly to Harry's own experience of being raised in the spotlight. The piece then quoted Harry saying his children were his upgrade, that parenting evolves, that there is no judgment and no blame. And yet the entire architecture of that piece was judgment and blame. The message couldn't have been clearer if it had arrived as a formal press release. Harry is a better father than Charles was.
The whole world, especially America, is really loving King Charles after that state visit. Not only is this man delusional, he is scummy. Like, this is not the time for another attack on King Charles. But Harry, you can't preach about how you're giving your children space out of the public eye while your wife has just posted another picture of them.
This is what happens to them all the time. I will never get over it.
This is just what we expect from you, Meghan. Posts these pictures which all appear to be artificially altered.
Her only authenticity is in her inauthenticity. We all know this.
And Archie's 7th birthday was the occasion chosen to make that point publicly. This landed during a week when King Charles had just returned from a highly successful state visit to the United States. By any measure, it went well. He was warmly received. The coverage was genuinely positive. And right into that moment of real goodwill toward the king, his son briefed a magazine with a story painting him as the inadequate parent whose shortcomings shaped Harry's supposedly superior approach. Thomas Markle has drawn a comparison between himself and King Charles that caught a lot of people off guard when he first made it. He said that both of them have been cut off from the same grandchildren. He said that every time he sees Charles on television, he's reminded they share something neither of them asked for both grandfathers to Archie and Lilibet, and neither one permitted to actually know those children. He said simply that it wasn't fair, and it isn't. 2 grandfathers, one in a palace, one in Mexico, both finding out about birthdays through a screen, with no way in. The difference is that Charles received, on the occasion of those same birthday photos, a magazine piece crafted to make him look like a cautionary tale. That is quite something to do to a man who is seriously unwell, who has made genuine and documented attempts at reconciliation, and who, by all accounts, would very much like to know his grandchildren while he still has the chance. Now, fairness demands this be said clearly. Thomas Markle is not a perfect man. He staged paparazzi photos before the royal wedding, something he has acknowledged was wrong. He has given interviews over the years he might handle differently today. He has spoken to the press more than was wise, and more than his daughter wanted, and that has given people an easy reason to dismiss him without ever actually engaging with whether what he says is accurate. But on the specific, concrete question of how his grandchildren are being raised and used, his track record has been remarkably uncomfortably on point. Years ago, Thomas Markle said that Archie and Lilibet were being treated as pawns.
When turning Archwell Foundation into Archwell Philanthropies, they said it was for a family thing so that their children could be involved. And around that time, they got the Prince and Princess titles. I mean, it's great. Everyone hopes that their children would like to be charitable and philanthropic, but what if they don't want to be? What if they want to do something else? And it's just very much going in the vein of doing exactly what happened to Harry for monetization for Meghan. Harry's not quite smart enough to put two and two together.
He said they were being cut off from their wider family, from cousins, from grandparents, from the kind of extended network that gives children a real sense of who they are and where they come from. He said he worried about what these children would think when they were old enough to look back at their own childhoods and understand the choices that had been made on their behalf before they had any say in the matter. He said in one interview that he worried about the moment they would realize they had been taken advantage of. He said all of this while the mainstream press was largely writing him off as a bitter, attention-seeking relative. And then Meghan named a candle after Archie's birth date and sent a commercial email blast on the same day as his birthday post. And Harry briefed a magazine to frame his own father as a lesson in deficient parenting. And the photographs came out altered. When Thomas Markle called his grandchildren pawns, he wasn't speaking loosely. He was describing a specific pattern he had watched play out throughout his own relationship with his daughter, the tendency to bring people and relationships into service of a larger strategy and to move them aside when they no longer fit that strategy. He watched it happen to himself. He warned it was happening to the children, and the birthday coverage suggests he wasn't wrong. There is one more thing worth saying. Thomas Markle also described the situation, at various points, using one particular word: not dramatic, not catastrophic, cruel. The quiet, grinding cruelty of being an elderly man who has never been in the same room as the grandchildren who share his blood, watching them grow up in curated Instagram squares, denied even the most basic knowledge of what they are actually like as people. That word tends to get swallowed by the louder arguments surrounding Harry and Meghan, but it deserves to be heard. Now, step back from the specific events of Archie's birthday, and the broader picture that emerges is one Thomas Markle and others have been describing for a long time. Around the time of the birthday post, a well-connected British journalist had published a detailed, well-sourced piece suggesting that some of Meghan's most prominent American allies, people photographed alongside her, publicly associated with her brand, assumed to be firmly in her corner, were quietly creating distance between themselves and her. The piece was gaining real traction. Within days, a warm and glowing endorsement of Meghan's Mother's Day candles appeared on the social media feed of one of the very figures named in that article, framed as a personal recommendation from a devoted friend, arriving at the end of a long scroll of promotional content tucked in with perfect timing.
Oprah is sticking around because she may or may not be writing a book, and she wants the exclusive. Then she talks about Nicole. Well, Nicole is a lovely woman. Nicole is not the type to burn a bridge, nor is she the type to say, "I hate you, go away." She might think it, but she would not do it. Do they see each other, smile, and do air kisses and hugs? I am absolutely positive. Do they talk on the regular? That's a hell no.
This is what the operation does. It monitors the coverage, it identifies the threats, it responds. A story suggests the celebrity alliance is fraying within the week. A very public display of celebrity loyalty is arranged. A week in which the king has generated more genuine goodwill than Harry and Meghan have managed in months, and his son briefing a magazine about what a superior father he is becomes the counter-programming. None of this is organic. None of it is accidental. And the children, Archie with his birthday candle, Lilibet with hers, are part of the machinery, not because their parents don't love them, That is not the argument. The argument is simpler and sadder than that. The line between genuinely celebrating your children and commercially deploying them has been crossed so many times, so casually, that it appears to no longer register as a line at all. Tom Bauer, who understands this family's dynamics better than almost any journalist alive, said something that deserves to be repeated here. Tom Bauer described Meghan as someone who will always find a way she believes she can win, and for whom the casualties along the road are treated as simply irrelevant. He listed those casualties: her father, her oldest friends, her first husband, the members of the royal family who genuinely tried to make things work and were pushed aside for it. And he asked the question that a lot of people find themselves quietly asking: when does Harry become the next one? But there are two names that don't appear on Bauer's list, because they cannot yet speak for themselves: Archie and Lilibet, 7 years old and not yet 4. Children who have had candles named after their birth dates and sold to the public before they are old enough to understand what a brand even is. Children whose grandfather, the one in Mexico, not the one in the palace, has spent 7 years waiting patiently for a phone call that still hasn't come. 7 years. That is how long Thomas Markle has been watching his grandson grow up from the outside. 7 birthdays observed through a managed, filtered, strategically released social media feed. He said he would wait, and he has waited. And every birthday that passes without a phone call, without an invitation, without so much as a reply to his public appeals, is a quiet verdict on the gap between what Harry and Meghan say they stand for and how they actually conduct themselves. And it is worth pausing on that gap, because it is not a small one. It is not the kind of gap that emerges from honest mistakes or the natural messiness of complicated family dynamics. It is a gap that has been documented repeatedly across years, across continents, across very different kinds of public moments. And it keeps showing up in the same place between the version of this family that gets presented to the world through carefully managed channels and the version that emerges when you look at what is actually happening on the ground. Harry and Meghan have built an entire public identity around the idea of authenticity. That word has followed them everywhere. Authentic, real, unfiltered. They left the royal family, they said, because they wanted to live honestly, without the constraints of an institution that required them to perform rather than simply be. They wanted to raise their children as normal people, not as symbols or commodities or public property. They wanted, above all, to be seen as they truly were. And yet, the birthday photographs were digitally altered, the candles went on sale, the magazine piece went out. And Thomas Markle, who has spent 7 years being told he is the problem, watched all of it from Mexico through a screen, like the rest of us. The authenticity argument deserves to be examined carefully, because it has been enormously effective. When Harry and Meghan sat down for their major television interview and told their version of events, many people believed them, not necessarily because of the specific claims they made, some of which were later disputed or quietly walked back, but because they seemed real. They seemed to be sharing something genuine and painful. The emotional register of that interview was powerful, and emotional register is often more persuasive than factual accuracy. But authenticity as a performance is not authenticity. And when the same couple who built their brand on emotional honesty are found to be altering photographs, coordinating commercial launches with their children's birthday posts, and briefing friendly press on the same day to run favorable coverage, the word authentic starts to carry a different weight. It starts to sound less like a description and more like a strategy. Thomas Markle understood this early. He said, years ago, that his daughter had always been this way, that the gap between the public image and the private reality was something he had watched develop over a long time. He was dismissed for saying it. He was characterized as a man who had failed his daughter, who had embarrassed her at the most important moment of her life, who was now lashing out from a place of wounded pride. And some of that characterization was not entirely unfair. He did make mistakes, he has acknowledged them, and the paparazzi photograph situation before the wedding was genuinely damaging and genuinely wrong. But being imperfect does not make a person incorrect. And on the specific question of the gap between image and reality, Thomas Markle's observations have held up with uncomfortable consistency. The birthday week of Archie's 7th year was not an isolated incident. It was a data point in a very long pattern. Consider what that week actually contained when you lay it all out together. Digitally enhanced photographs presented as natural family memories. A commercial product launch coordinated with a child's birthday post, with the child's birth date literally encoded into the product name and price. A press briefing to a sympathetic outlet framing a seriously ill grandfather as a cautionary tale in parenting. A rapid response celebrity endorsement deployed to counter a negative news cycle. All of this in the space of a few days. All of it centered on a 7-year-old child's birthday. Now ask yourself a simple question. Is this what protecting your children from the commercial pressures of public life looks like? Is this what it means to raise children away from the spotlight, away from the machinery of celebrity, away from the experience of being used as public property? Because if it is, then the words Harry has spoken at summits and in interviews about the dangers of social media and the importance of protecting children online were not a mission statement. They were content. They were part of the same operation as the candles and the magazine piece and the altered photographs. And this is where Thomas Markle's voice becomes genuinely important, not because he is a perfect man or a neutral observer, but because he has been watching this operation from a specific vantage point that nobody else occupies. He is the person who raised Meghan. He is the person who, by his own account, gave her significant financial support during her early career, who was proud of her, who wanted to walk her down the aisle at the most significant moment of her public life. And he is the person who has been completely excised from that life, not gradually, not as the result of a slow drift, but cleanly and deliberately, and then publicly characterized in ways that made the excision easier to justify. He has watched his daughter build a public narrative. He has watched that narrative require, at various points, specific supporting characters and specific villains. And he has noticed that the role of villain in the Sussex story tends to be assigned to people who are no longer useful and who cannot easily defend themselves without appearing to attack the couple's children or each other. King Charles cannot respond robustly to a magazine piece, framing him as an inadequate parent without appearing to make a seriously ill man's birthday week about himself. Thomas Markle cannot pursue legal action to see his grandchildren without, by his own moral reasoning, making the children instruments of a conflict. The palace cannot engage aggressively with the Sussex operations media strategy without dignifying it with the kind of response that generates more coverage. Everyone in the orbit of Harry and Meghan who might push back is either constrained by their own decency, their own position, or their own love for the children at the center of all of this. And in that space, that carefully maintained space where robust response is difficult and silence looks like admission, the narrative operates freely. Tom Bower's question about Harry is the right one to end on, because it is the question that the last few years have been building toward. Harry has given up an enormous amount. He has given up his place in the institution he was born into, his relationships with his father and his brother, his position in the country where he grew up, his military honors, the titles his children might have held, and the ordinary proximity to family that most people take entirely for granted. He has given up all of this in the service of a shared project, a shared vision, a shared brand. And the brand has not been performing well. The Netflix series landed with a mixed reception at best. The memoir generated enormous controversy and significant family damage without producing the redemptive public moment it seemed designed to create. The various podcast and production deals have not delivered the cultural footprint that was presumably part of the plan. The American celebrity network that was supposed to form the foundation of a new kind of influence appears, according to multiple well-sourced reports, to be quietly loosening. Against this backdrop, the birthday week coverage takes on a slightly different character. It is not just a pattern of behavior, it is a pattern of behavior under pressure. When things are going well, the operation is disciplined and strategic. When things are not going well, the strategy becomes more visible, more reactive, more willing to use whatever is available. And what is available, always, is the children. Their birthdays, their images, their birth dates encoded into $64 candles, their faces glimpsed from behind in dramatic mountain landscapes, their existence as proof of a life well lived, a family successfully built, an escape from the institution successfully made. Archie and Lilibet are not being harmed in any visible or dramatic sense. They are, by all appearances, loved children in a comfortable home. But they are also, by the evidence of their own 7th birthday coverage, assets. And the line between a beloved child and a brand asset, when it disappears entirely, takes something with it that is very difficult to recover. Thomas Markle, the man in Mexico, the man who has never heard his grandson's voice, the man who turns 81 this year and who has spent 7 of those years waiting for a phone call that has not come. That man saw this clearly before most people were willing to look. He said it plainly. He was dismissed for saying it. And then Archie's 7th birthday arrived, and the candles went on sale, and the photographs came out altered, and the magazine ran its piece, and the celebrity endorsement appeared on cue. He said Archie and Lilibet were not pawns. He said it as a warning, as a plea, as an expression of hope that the people making decisions about these children's lives would recognize a line and choose not to cross it. 7 birthdays later, the evidence suggests the line has not just been crossed, it has been crossed so many times and so routinely that it may no longer be visible to the people doing the crossing. And in the background, across an ocean, an elderly man checks his phone. He sees, like everyone else, a photograph of a child he has never met. He reads the caption. He notes the timing. He watches the candles sell. He sees the magazine piece, and he says nothing new, because he has already said everything years ago, and the record is there for anyone who wants to look at it honestly. Before you go, I want to leave you with something worth sitting with. When Archie is old enough to look back at his own childhood to understand what was sold in his name, what was said on his behalf, whose strategy his birthday served, before he was old enough to have any view on any of it, what do you think he will feel? When he is old enough to search the archive and find the candles, find the coordinated email blast, find the altered photographs, find the magazine piece that ran on his birthday framing his grandfather as a parenting cautionary tale, what do you think that moment will be like for him? And do you think Thomas Markle, the grandfather across the ocean, the one he has never met, the one who turned down free legal representation because he refused to make his grandchildren instruments of a conflict, do you think that man has been telling the truth all along? Because the question of what these children's childhoods have actually been for who they served, whose interests they advanced, whose narrative they supported is one that will only get harder to avoid as Archie and Lilibet grow older. Children become teenagers, teenagers become adults, adults develop their own views, ask their own questions, and go looking for their own answers. And the answers are already in the record, fully documented, carefully time-stamped, waiting. A grandfather in Mexico has been putting his answers on record for 7 years. He has been patient, he has been consistent, he has been on the specific and concrete question of how these children are being raised and what they are being used for. Uncomfortably accurate. The birthday coverage suggests he has not been wrong, and the children, when they are ready, will be able to read every word. If this video gave you something to think about, please give it a like. It genuinely helps more people find this community and be part of this conversation. If you are not yet subscribed, please hit that button right now. We cover these stories with the depth and honesty they deserve, and you will not want to miss what is coming next. Share this with someone you think needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Thomas Markle has been telling the truth? Do you think Archie will one day go looking for answers? We read every single comment, and your perspective genuinely matters here. We will see you in the next one.